What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikiPikaPapa, and today we're going to be talking about the state of the hobby. Now, you know, in this video, we're going to talk about all kinds of macro level information. We are going to look at the aggregate value of the top 20 singles cards from the Sword and Shield era, the Sun and Moon era. We're going to look at them from the XY era, and I have been charting that information for the last 18 months. So we're going to see how it performed month over month, and we're going to have a view over how it's been moving for the last year and a half, and we're going to do the same thing for booster boxes. We're going to look at singles cards. We have so much information in this video. It is absolutely, hands down, one of my favorite ones that we do. So before we get into all that, though, we've got to talk about the elephant in the Pokemon room, and that is the launch of Destined Rivals. Obviously, pre-orders came out the other day on the Pokemon Center website, and it was an absolute bloodbath. I have a very, very good win streak of picking up products when they launch. I'm super fortunate. I have access to the PokeNotify Discord, so if you don't know what that is, you can check it out in the description down below. It is the best way to get your hands on product as it's coming out, and it has always served me well. However, this time, guess what? You know I travel full-time for work. I was actually in the air when it launched, and I was in that awkward phase where the plane is coming down, so I lost Wi-Fi signal, and by the time I got my Wi-Fi back, it was sold out. I had no chance. I was number like 2,300,000 and something in line, so it was game over. So obviously, I was disappointed like everybody else, but I have said for a long time, especially over the last 3 or 4 months, I've said, listen, you're going to miss. Like, there are going to be opportunities that you really want to buy product and you're going to miss, and that sucks. But I have also said that I am a big believer that the Pokemon Company International wants you to be able to buy product from them. They are a for-profit company. Like, I believe, and I've been saying this for a long time. I feel like I'm a voice of one. Everybody keeps telling me how terrible the Pokemon Company is and how they're not going to come through on their promise to reprint. But yet again, on the third time, they have yet again reiterated the fact that they are going to be reprinting some of this Pokemon product. And I'm telling you right now, I am not panicking over Destined Rivals. I'm not panicking over Journey Together. I'm not even panicking over the Eevee Super Premium Collection box that I was actually able to pick up thanks to the PokeNotify app the other day. I have one pre-ordered from the Pokemon Center. But I truly believe we are going to have plenty of product for us in the future. Is it going to happen now? Absolutely not. Is it going to feel like it takes them a lifetime to get the product in our hands? For sure. But unless you are here in 2021, it's hard to understand what we're going through right now. 2021 was when the peak of Pokemon insanity hit during the pandemic. And I mean, there were fist fights at Target. I mean, it was just wild. It was a lot of what we're seeing right now. You see people fighting over blooming water boxes. There's just insanity in the market right now. But believe it or not, back in 2021, that's exactly what we were going through. And Pokemon Company responded by printing the ever-loving you-know-what out of the upcoming sets. I mean, think about Shining Fates and Battle Styles. Those were the two sets that they really over-indexed on printing. Shining Fates and Battle Styles were available at the Pokemon Center up until the last, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months ago is when they finally sold out. So not only did those two early Sword and Shield era sets make it through the entire Sword and Shield era, but they darn near made it through the end of Scarlet and Violet as well. That was how much of those two sets they printed. I dare you, go onto Reddit and search for scalping Shining Fates, and you will find articles from 4 years ago where people are absolutely losing their mind because Shining Fates ETBs were being sold for $150, $175, and they weren't able to get their hands on Shining Fates. And it is so eerily similar to what we're going through right now. However, if you didn't live through it before, and I know we have a lot of awesome new collectors, awesome new people who are in the hobby, if you didn't go through it back then, it's really hard to understand it right now. And also, listen, this is an emotional hobby. Like, I love doing this. I love collecting cards. I love opening packs with my kids. Everything about it I love. Sure, I talk about long-term investing and holding, and that's a part of what I do too. But at the core of the reason I find joy in this hobby, it's doing all of that with my family and just having the cards. And of course, I get disappointed when I can't get my hands on it. So that is a very long, extremely boring intro of me saying, I think and I truly feel it's going to be okay. I think there's going to be plenty of Journey Together. They've already talked about reprinting Paldean Fates. They've already talked about even Paldea Evolved. They've talked about Twilight Masquerade, Surging Sparks. Obviously, they have said yet again they're going to reprint Destined Rivals. We might even see Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs launch. So who knows what we're going to find. All I know is, yes, I can't have what I want right now, but I think I'm going to get it in the future, and that makes me feel really good. So with that out of the way, let's start talking about the core of this video that we do every single month. And I'm going to start off by showing you a bunch of graphs. And so if you haven't seen this video series before, as I said earlier, I started 18 months ago. I was aggregating the value of the top 20 singles cards in every single set that has a booster box in the XY, Sun and Moon, and Sword and Shield era, right? 12 different sets came with booster boxes in XY, Sun and Moon, and Sword and Shield. I aggregated the value of the top 20 cards from each of those sets, so you have a total of 240 cards. And what I did was I started graphing how those prices moved over time, and it was because I've always wanted to have a finger on the pulse of what's going on at the macro level of the hobby. As I said earlier, this hobby can be very emotional. We can see big swings up and big swings down, and I work hard for my money, and so do you. So I always wanted to make sure that we had the best information available at our fingertips when we choose to spend it. So what you'll see right here is you can see that aggregate value of the top 20 singles cards in the XY space from February to March, and I pull this data on the 15th of every month, or really, really close to that date in order for consistency. So some of these prices could have moved a little bit from then to now, but I pull it on the 15th of every month. So you'll see from the 15th of February to the 15th of March, those 240 cards in the XY era went up 10.5% in value month over month. And that is a really interesting call out, because if you look at the XY graph, the value of those cards have been going up every single month. I think it's for 15 consecutive months in a row now. And really, after it had started going up for 3 months, so we're talking about a year ago, here on this channel, we specifically called out and we started to say, listen, when you look at how much those top 20 singles cards in the XY era are, they are way cheaper than Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield. Now, being cheap doesn't always mean it has the opportunity to grow in price, but there was some awesome artwork, some big name Pokemon. So we started talking all the way a year ago that these cards have the opportunity to do well. Then we knew, again, quite a while ago, that the Mega Pokemon cards were returning. We didn't have the information that we have today, but again, as soon as Pokemon Legends Z to A was announced, we knew that Mega Pokemon were returning. And so then we continued to see the price climb. And now that they've made the official announcement, now that we've seen our first couple cards of those Mega cards, the XY singles have just been going absolutely nuts. But the thing to call out still is, again, the aggregate value of those 240 cards in the XY era is just shy of $7,500, where the aggregate value of those 240 cards in the Sword and Shield era is $13,500. And if you look in the Sun and Moon era, the aggregate value is $15,000. Now, I'm not saying that XY has to get as high as Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon. All I'm saying is that there is a precedence from the two sets after that the combined value of those 240 cards could go much higher. Who knows? I say all the time, my crystal ball isn't working. I don't know what the future will hold, but I do know when I'm looking at X and Y, I'm specifically talking about Phantom Forces. I'm talking about Ancient Origins. I'm talking about Flashfire, right? Like, I'm looking at the chase cards in those three big sets, because we know big sets, big name Pokemon have the opportunity for big gains. That's what I'm looking at. Now, the other big call out from this right here, now that I've spent 5 minutes talking about XY, if you look at Sword and Shield and you see how the prices have moved over time in the Sword and Shield era, you'll see that we hit these periods of flatness, and then it spiked up, and then it dropped down. And one of the things that we have noticed is there is definitely a pattern that has emerged in Sword and Shield. So yes, the top 20 singles cards are up 3.4% month over month, but it is starting to slow down. And I did a whole video on this. If you didn't see the one I did in the middle of the month where I specifically went into great detail about what's happening in the Sword and Shield space, you should go check it out, because we're starting to see some patterns emerge. It'll be interesting to see if it follows the same pattern it did before, which would indicate we're about to hit a period where Sword and Shield cards might actually come down a little bit in value, which is totally okay, because I think some of them are getting a little bit high and a little too big for their britches. But it'll be interesting to see over the next couple months if it follows that same pattern. Now, Sun and Moon has just been doing great. I mean, it really has. When you look at that graph, you hit a little bit of a bowl, towards, the beginning of 2024, at the end of 2023. But really, it's just been steady Eddie. But again, what are we seeing? We saw Sword and Shield take off. We're seeing X and Y do really well. And now we're seeing a lot of Sun and Moon singles do the same thing. So it's been fascinating to chart these things out. Now, of course, not just singles cards, we also look at booster boxes. So this is just the aggregate value of those 12 booster boxes that I was talking about. So if you go back to September of 2023, if you were to buy one of every single Sword and Shield booster box, it would have cost you about $2,100, right? That's where the graph starts. Now, all the way to the right, if you were to do the same exercise today, it would cost you just shy of $4,800. And The thing I really love about this is, you know that I'm a fan of singles card collecting for the personal side, and I also have a couple cards that I think are going to be great long-term investments. And the nice thing about singles cards is I can tie my love of the collecting, I can tie my love of the art, I can really enjoy it with my kids. Like, that's the big thing about singles cards. But when you talk about the opportunity to protect your downside in terms of capital appreciation, in terms of the way you spend your money, it is hard to beat sealed. Like, that's not a secret. Everybody knows that. But when you see it on a graph, it really, really kind of brings things to light. So if you look at Sun and Moon, one of the things about Sun and Moon is look at the jumping off point. So we talked about in September of 2023, if you were to buy all 12 booster boxes from Sword and Shield, that would have cost you about $2,100. And then if you look at Sun and Moon, it would have cost you about $7,200. And so in the back of my mind, all those months ago, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, this is a really high jumping off point for Sun and Moon. What Sun and Moon is going to tell me, quite possibly, again, there's nothing for sure, but if Sun and Moon can get up and continue to go up, then Sword and Shield should have a very high ceiling as well, right? Sword and Shield with alt arts and, you know, how it drove all kinds of people back into the hobby. The print runs are different, so take that into consideration. Sealed collecting was different. There's going to be more sealed Sword and Shield products, so you got to factor all that in. But what I'm saying is Sun and Moon, if you were to buy all 12 of those booster boxes right now, would cost you about $11,500, where 18 months ago it would have cost you $7,200. So the difference in the ability for these booster boxes to continue to grow to $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $1,000, $1,200 is obviously there from the Sun and Moon era. And then XY, I always say you got to kind of take XY with a big grain of salt because there was very, very little sealed collecting back then. So these booster boxes command huge premiums. They don't sell very often, so a single sale or a couple sales can really drive the prices up or down. You'll see there's a lot of choppiness in the data, but at the end of the day, if you were to trend line this out, again, the booster boxes started at about $11,600 for all 12 of them. And then if you look at it, it is all the way up to $17,500, the aggregate value for those 12 booster boxes. So Sun and Moon right now is basically where XY started 18 months ago, and XY has gone all the way up to 17.5. So, I mean, for me, that just tells me the ceiling for Sword and Shield is through the freaking roof. Like, there is no ceiling. Who knows how high a lot of these Sword and Shield booster boxes can go. Sun and Moon has room to run, you know, and XY really is a special era as well. So really cool stuff, and that's why I do all of this. But you've heard me say a lot of times that I feel like the market is starting to soften. As you can tell from the last two slides, I have been looking at data for a very, very long time here in the Pokemon space. And some of the things that I'm starting to see, which give me, I won't say any, I don't know, it's not a bad feeling, right? I'm actually excited. I actually hope the market starts to go through a healthy and needed correction. But some of the things I'm seeing is this in the Scarlet and Violet era, right? So you've got 4 of your biggest chase cards here, right? The Greninja, the Magikarp, which is my favorite card from that era. You got the Sunzard, and you have the Pikachu. And I did a whole video on that Pikachu card. You know how much I believe in the long-term opportunity for that card. But all 4 of them have been down over the last month. The Greninja is down about 7%. That Magikarp is down 10%. Even the Sunzard from 151, one of the most beloved sets of the entire Scarlet and Violet era, that card is down about 8%, coming down from a high of 300. It's down to about $250 right now. And that Pikachu, we talked about reprints, right? Like, we're hearing Paldea Evolve, Twilight Masquerade, and Surging Sparks are going to get reprints. Well, these 3 cards come from those 3 sets. So in the long run, what we have seen when we went through this with Lost Origin and Brilliant Stars, what we have seen is that, yes, this will cause, you know, the market will be flooded with these. Hopefully, we'll have some opportunities to pick them up, which would be great. But in the long run, these are great cards. So they're going to do fine in 5-10 years from now, right? But what I'm interested in is what is the market going to do now? Are buying opportunities going to be presenting themselves? These haven't dropped enough for me to be, you know, going out there and trying to buy them left and right. We'll just have to see. But you know, that Magikarp, my gosh, coming in, if it gets near $200, same thing with that Pikachu. If that Pikachu gets near $400, which I actually think it'll break the $400 point, I think it'll come down more. You know, I would be all over both of that. That Charizard, that Sunzard, I can't really see it hitting below 250. It seems like it's getting a lot of support there, but who knows what will happen. I mean, if that card gets down to $200, $225, like, it'd be really hard for me not to pick up some of them and add it to the collection, because I do think in the long run, they're going to be great. And then some of the other things that I've noticed too is not just cards that are coming down. When I see cards coming down, I always wanted to look into what cards are doing well, like what is propping up the market. So we have some cards in the Scarlet and Violet era that have popped up over the last month. But the biggest takeaway for me here is, you know, I always say I want big name Pokemon from big sets, right? And you got the Perrin right there, which is popped off. Artwork is stunning. That is right now, that is like the trainer card. Obviously, Journey Together is going to change that, and Destined Rivals is going to change that. But if you're just talking about a regular old trainer card, you know, that's one of the highest priced ones in the Scarlet and Violet era, coming in at $100. It's up 12% over the last month. And then Raging Bolt, love that artwork. I absolutely think that card is a stunner. And another one that is up over the last month. And then you got the Gardevoir right there. Obviously, this is an awesome Pokemon, been around forever. You know, so people know and love Gardevoir. Gardevoir from Paldean Fates again, that one is up as well. Then you got the Groudon card down there, which, listen, I'm a big fan of that artwork as well, but all of these cards started off sub $100 and now they're up to $100, right? So you saw the other ones which were in the $250, $300, $400 range working their way down. You see these which started below, they're working their way up to $100. So it's going to be interesting to see if the market becomes a little more leery towards those $200, $300, $400 cards and they start looking for a little more value right now. We've talked about that again a lot on this channel recently. You know, when things start getting frothy, I am always looking for value. I'm looking for great opportunities to pick up awesome cards at fair prices. I don't look for bare bottom prices, right? I just look for fair prices. And so that's something that we've been doing a lot here on the channel as of late. And then of course, you can't talk about the state of the hobby without talking about Journey Together, which came out on Friday. And these are my favorite pickups from the Journey Together space. I did a whole video on my favorite investments, and no surprise here, but I do think the fact we know Destined Rivals is not an enhanced booster box. It's just a regular booster box. So you have the Journey Together enhanced booster boxes, which I think the fact that they've got that stamp promo in there is going to put them on a whole new level. I'm super fortunate. As I said earlier, I was able to pick up a good number of these, so I am comfortable with that in my collection. I got 2 of the Journey Together Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes. Couldn't be happier. Think those are going to be fantastic as well. I did a whole little bit on that Lily Milk Crate right there. I love that. If you look, it's not just that it's got Lily on it, which would be enough to get me excited, but the pack selection in there is fantastic as well. Remember, we're only going to get 10 sets, 10 regular sets in the Scarlet and Violet era, and I would say 4 of the top 5 sets are represented in this Milk Crate. So you got Lily, you got awesome artwork, you got these awesome packs in it. Man, I am all about that Milk Crate. And then, of course, I told you the only single card I'm really going to be going after in Journey Together is, of course, this Lily's Clefairy. And what's interesting to me is, you know, prices, I think it's going to be interesting to see where the price kind of normalizes on this, especially if Pokemon Company does what they say they're going to do, and we're going to get additional reprints of all of these further into the future. I mean, I would not hesitate. Who knows? It's at like $380, $390 right now. I would be looking in the 2s to actually pull the trigger on this, so we'll have to see. I'm in no rush. I never will spend more money out of impatience. I have no problem missing on products or items. I just feel like I've got to be comfortable with the price that I pay. So I would love to pick this up, and hopefully I can get it for a price that makes me feel good. And then the final thing that we talk about every time we do the State of the Hobby video, this is the grading volume by month at PSA, specifically in the TCG space. And last month, we had seen the second highest grading total ever in the history at PSA in the TCG space. And then what did we see this month? I mean, it's not even close. Last month I had to get really fine and granular, and I had to say, okay, look, there's one at 576, this one's at 570. This month we had 726,000 TCG cards graded at PSA, which is really, it's just hard to conceptualize how many cards that is. It has been crazy. Now, the TCG grading volume at PSA has been growing steadily over the last 5 months, and really towards the middle of 2024, we started to get a whole lot of momentum. We've had big sets that have come out. We have big chase cards, obviously. Supply and demand is out of whack. I think a ton of people are getting cards graded to sell them on the secondary market, but seeing 726,000 cards graded was absolutely insane. Now, you did have Terrestrial Festival, which was in there, obviously lots of gradable cards in there, so there is some why behind it, but I really don't see it slowing down anymore. Now, I had said it's hard to conceptualize how big of a number that is, but I thought I would share this graphic with you to finish the video and to show you how big of a number that is. We all know PSA is the biggest grading space for everything, not just like TCG, like baseball, basketball, football, hockey, you know, ticket stubs, you name it, they're the biggest. And I want to put this in perspective for you. So in February of 2025, PSA as a whole, items graded, everything, all encompassing, graded 1.44 million items. However, in February of 2025, TCG and non-sports, remember the last slide was just TCG, this includes non-sports, so you have racing and wrestling and some other things that are in there as well. But TCG, which makes up the lion's share of this, and non-sports represented 771,000 of that 1.44 million items graded at PSA. Now just sit back and think about this. Think about how big the baseball collecting space is, the basketball, the football, the hockey. Think about how big all of that is. And our awesome space of TCG represented over half of all of the cards that were graded at PSA last month. It is an incredible time to be in the hobby. I am so pumped for the next 6 months. I think we're going to have an awesome opportunity to get all kinds of great singles cards and all kinds of awesome sealed product. And I think the market is going to go through a little bit of a panic. I think we're going to get flooded with this. Prices are going to go down and then everybody's going to say the market is crashing. Mark my word, you are going to see more YouTubers doing crashing videos. And on this channel, we're going to do buying videos, because if the market comes down like I think it will, I think it's going to be an awesome opportunity to scoop up some, I don't know, I won't call them once in a lifetime, but certainly once in a Pokemon generation deals to get some of these. And then 3 years from now, when we're looking at them all spiking in price, we're gonna feel really, really good about the purchases that we made. So I hope you had a ton of fun. This is a really long video, but I think the information in it is totally worth it. And I just think this is really fun to share this information with you. So hope you had a great time. Hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, hit that subscribe button. If you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up. And most importantly, have an epic rest of your day. Thank you so much. See you, everybody. Bye.